Hello everyone, Verb here. Today I'll be talking about end closers in the Libra Cup. As you know, there's a bit of overlap with late surgers, so this will be more of a delta where I go and discuss the differences between the two roles and the different strategies you need to employ into actually running the end closer position in this champions meeting. I will be talking about XMAS Oguri. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. I will also be talking about the other characters that I believe are perfectly viable this champions meeting as well. For our agenda, as you know, this is the third of the four role-based guides. Do not worry, frontrunner players, yours is coming out in the next day or two. It is almost complete, but today I'm specifically talking about skills cards and characters for end closers in particular. If there's a skill that I either miss or gloss over, it probably was in the late surger guide and explained there. I'm attempting to cut it down a bit to make this video a little bit shorter than normal to make it more digestible. So we are focusing today specifically on end closers. With that out of the way, let's go and talk about end closers. Our end closers are good. I think they're perfectly fine. They have a better mid-race than the late surgers, and although they have high PDM, a lot of times just the fact that they have Daring Strike on a wit card and they don't have to sacrifice their deck whatsoever in order to run their gold mid-race skill is enough to push them forward in front of those late surgers, especially those that do not have good enough parents to compete with it. So a lot of times you're going to find your end closers actually going to be in front of those late surgers and pushing into the front half of the pack. They are also the fastest characters in the game in the late race if you do hit that acceleration. The only problem is that late surgers have a whole additional gold acceleration over you. They have on your left, you do not. So a lot of your bearing is on that lightning surge or leap forward skill, along with other various positional based accelerations that struggle a little bit because you don't necessarily know exactly where you're going to be in the pack, because you can arbitrage this situation by grabbing a bunch of different one of these, but you don't know if you're going to be in Nishino positioning at 3-4. You don't know if you're going to be in Ryan positioning at number 6. You don't know if you're in the back half of the pack for updrafters. Stuff like that gets very wonky when you have such good mid race in a CM where half the people probably won't be able to do. With that out of the way, there is not that many characters, but most of them are actually quite good and viable. So you can't necessarily go too wrong with those end closers. We will talk about them in the character section. Of course, there are chapters in the description below. For stat suggestions, nothing has really changed with this. I think 600 stam guts is a good milestone to have. If you get a little bit more than that, it's not going to hurt you. You're just going to be able to duel a little bit longer, which is perfectly good. Balance of power and wit is fine. You can go and pump additional wit if you like, and I think a lot of times because of Mr. CB wit, you will have a little bit higher wit than this, but do try to get a decent amount of power. I'd say above 1,000 power, and then as much wit as you can. If you get 1,200 power for the power release, it is actually really good because it does help you out a little bit with additional acceleration for proccing the is overtake condition for lightning surge and the like. Get your speed as high as possible. If you don't hit these exact successions, these are of course guidelines to go by. They are not absolute be all end alls for these. So this is my suggestion. They haven't changed based on the 4 roles. For skills, to start out, primary skills, a lot of your bearing is on leap forward or flash forward, which is now called lightning surge. Daichi Ruby does give the gold version of this skill. It is not 100% required, although this does give you basically a near perfect proc 0.2 in most of the situations where you're going to win. Now, the thing is, this is also back half of the pack, which is one of the struggles that I said was going to happen with Daring Strike if it's a heavy late surger lobby and you do have a quality amount of mid-race. So if you don't have this card and you are running just speed wit deck, it's perfectly fine to loop in just the white version. I think, although those who do go and strive for that flash forward will find actually surprisingly a lot of wins off of it due to the lack of various other accelerations that end closers have available to them. Updrafters has the same problem, except it's even worse. It's 6th to 9th. So if it's not a heavy front runner lobby, you're going to struggle a little bit in hitting this position. Otherwise, you have the positional based accelerations, and this is kind of the end closer bread and butter. You have to kind of combine like the leap forward white version at least with some level of positional based acceleration, whether it's sniping 6th position and then trying to pass into 5th position with either Marazensky or Mayano Top Gun Wedding, or just taking Nishino Flower for that 4th and 3rd position. This would make it so that if you have a 0.4, you have Lightning Surge for 5th or worse, you have Budding Blossom for 3rd and 4th, and now your range is incredibly wide, and if you're an end closer in 3rd or 4th, a lot of times you're going to be fine. Like a point 0.2 even is going to give you usually enough that you should be getting pretty close to the front, if not winning. So if you have sufficient late race, should be enough to close in that gap. Otherwise, at secondary accelerations, supplementing your primary acceleration is actually quite good. Of course, you have Shooting Star on Special Week Ultimate or Doto Ultimate as well, for the chain excels to help you out there. It's only point ones though. Nimble Navigator is good, but it does only procs about 1 out of every 5 times in my personal test. Egg Power exists, and the big one for end closers is Straightaway Spurt. Now the problem with Spurt is that if you do hit a point 0.4, its value goes down. Now at 0.4 Excel from my tests, it is a 0.42 maximum skill, which is making it similar to that of a Tripulse. It's just that this is not really here, in my opinion, for using in conjunction with the point 0.4. If you hit a point 0.4 before it, like a lightning surge, you are in a position where you already are fighting for the lead. Now, 0.42 is going to help with that. It's just not going to be too effective. Now, Encroaching Shadow gives a 1.91, and Regular Spurt gives a like a 0.7 when you do not hit Excel. But if you're in like second position, this is not position bound whatsoever, and it could arbitrage a little bit in those situations where you are pushing way too far forward in the pack to have a chance of winning. The thing is that Nishino Flower, Budding Blossom kind of does the same thing and maybe a little bit better, but Spurt or Shadow, if you're like Taishin and it's super cheap because you put your hint books on it, is an option, or you can run both of them and still hit 8.6. That's a lot of skill points if you aren't putting hint books in it. But I think that these two are both options. If you think you are a character that's going to consistently push forward due to its mid-race, perhaps it has a mid-race unique like Taishin does, like stuff like trying to think of another mid-race unique that would do it, but we'll get to it in the character section. If you think you're going to be pushing forward in the pack a lot, you might want one of these two to arbitrage against that dreaded 4th place position. For other excels, Rushing Gale, the gold version, does technically have velocity now, so it technically is efficient. I just don't think you're running Rico or Teo for it. Red Hot Discipline is just a little bit undercooked, a little bit under the line to go and grab as well. But it does exist, and this is technically a dirt character, so you might have a very good Lupa to put it on if you have extra skill points. I don't suggest the Taiki Shuttles. I don't suggest stuff like Pasa Fantasy. It just is too finicky enough to really care about when you have all those other options. Corner Con's going to be too gambly. Acceleration is going to proc too early. Highlander procs too late as per usual. For early race, you have less options than most of the other cast, but you do still have See You Later, and you do still have stuff like Unyielding Spirit, It's On, Slipstream, Umastan, and Closer Straits will be a 50-50. So not too much. You have a little bit less options in the early race, but your mid race has Daring Strike, and Daring Strike is a very good skill. It's about 25% better than a Professor of Curvature, which is also good on you. Corner Depth is great. Corner Depth is a mid race skill, and Daring Strike is a second mid race skill. You get both of these on your character, you are going to be flying forward in the pack. And Closer Corners also works. Double Circle is 0.25 instead of 0.15. Stuff like Eternal Moments is general mid race, as I've been told. So yeah, it still procs in the mid race, and Tail Held High, of course, is always good. A big thing about end closes is that final corner skills are very good because they will help with chances of speed carryover, which will also go and make it so that you have an instant proc lightning surge. Now you can always gamble on the downhill mode, of course, but without gambling, you can also just go and try to actually control it yourself by priming yourself with the skill of general mid-race, whether it be through Daring Strike or Professor of Curvature, hoping it procs at the proper time, and then hitting something like a Shadow Break. Now Nemesis is basically a weaker Shadow Break. It's a 0.15, but it is overtake. If your is overtake is a lot easier to hit than a full pass, so it doesn't need to be primed as much, and sometimes it does proc late on its own, but even then, Nemesis can go and chain into Shadow Break, especially if you are Narita Taishin herself, or Blazing Pride is a 0.15 version as well. But these final corner mid-race skills, plus Downhill Speedster, of course being that gamble, are very powerful on these end closer characters. Note that Hat Dober alt unique, wherever this wonder leads, does not speed carry over this time. It just has quite good timing on that just before final corner. Now, late race skills, things haven't changed too much in this one. The only additions are Intense Gaze and Masterful Gambit / Storm and Drung. Intense Gaze is a late race debuff, so basically you can kind of consider it quote unquote current speed a little bit, because it just debuffs the people in the field of view cone. There is technically a little wonky zone here on this corner where you could have your field of view cone not be on like the furthest forward front runner, and then it wouldn't give you any value, but that zone is rather small because you're hitting your acceleration pretty quickly. So most likely it's proccing in a position where you are on the straight, and you should be able to at least see the front runners in front of you. Now, if your proccing is overtake, you've got to see them to get an overtake target anyway. So Intense Gaze just simply is just basically a speed skill at the points when the situations that you're winning. Now, Masterful Gambit now has a precondition where you have to be in the back half of the race. So I believe it's somewhere on that final corner, which you generally will be. So you should be fine. And then at that point, it does give you a massive speed boost in phase 3 in that final spurt at the home stretch haste timing. So it's basically just another IBAM, which is really, really nice. Home stretch haste, of course, is good as well. Late race final corners still don't really work for end close, although of all the positions, this is the one that would have the highest chance of proccing them late. So if you do want the win QED, I'm not going to say get it, but it has the highest chance of late proccing in the 1 to 4 position. But the thing is that you should be proccing at like 5th and 6th place stuff, and you should be getting into that 4th position rather quickly in the situations where you've actually hit your Excel properly. Your scenario skills has not changed whatsoever. You still kind of go for Racing Power, Racing Stam, and then Ignited Spirit Power as an alternative secondary acceleration. And that's it. Those are the skills for end closers. Not too much to say. I'm going to grab a drink of water and let's talk about the cards. So for cards, you're still running the best stat cards that you have, even if they don't give you too many skills, and there is not that many end closer cards in the game, so you're probably running Tachyon Speed anyways if you still own it. Otherwise, you're running Light Hello for See You Later. You're running probably Kidison Black for Professor of Curvature if you don't own enough SSR cards to fill out the deck. Do note that you still can run Chinko Wendy or Vodka or Sweep Tosho. Those are all great options. Of course, otherwise you run your best stat sticks in the game that you have. Pasa Speed is a very good stat stick as well. And the end closer card that technically gives you a skill in end closer straights is Air Shocker Speed, although I think its training is slightly worse than the rest of the cast. For wit cards, your primary is Daring Strike on Mr. CB with hints for tail held high, and otherwise you are running Teo Wit. For Professor of Curvature is another option as well. Again, you need high LB copies of this one. Otherwise, you're running your best wit cards available for the highest stat sticks, which usually is going to be Fine Motion for right-handed Fall Runner, Outer Post Proficiency, Corner Adept, and Nimble Navigator. Some great hints on that card when she decides to give you them. Now, if you are running SRs in order to fill up your deck, Machikane Fukuhitaru has right-handed in kit, has high initial friendship. I think this is a very consistently good wit card. Now, Sweep Tosha Wit has good output with end closer straights available to you, and of course, Marby Wit has good hints in tail held high, ramp up, and Hanshin Green. Now, what's it called? You can run like Daiwa Wit. That's perfectly fine. Has great trainings. You don't necessarily need to be caring about the hints too much on these cards. A lot of the characters have the hints on them, and you should be building parents with those particular skills in it as well. For power cards, you probably will be running Daichi Ruby, or you'll be borrowing for CB Wit. I think those are the two primary options. Don't forget that Ayabe power does exist. If you did pull on the Fuku banner and get a high LB copy of her, I know it's a power card, but Daring Strike is very powerful, and if you can somehow fit it in, and you don't mind playing the 2-1-2 game, she has 20% training effectiveness. She is still a very good stat output card even when she roams, so she's perfectly fine as well. And so the situation happens where you don't have either of these two cards, so what you should do. Now, the first initial thought should be, should I just be playing Late Surger? That is a perfectly viable thought because the Late Surger cards generally are easier for you to build stuff, but if you want to play End Closer, possibly for Oshu reasons, I think you probably borrow and use Mr. CB to start because you're just running the 3-2 Hello deck. Daring Strike is kind of the bread and butter for your end closers, and from there you use stuff like Ryan or Nishino Flower unique to try to go and push forward into the pack to hit the front half of the pack, and hopefully the point 2 or point 4 that you actually have access to is enough to go and win you from that front half of the pack position. It's not going to work every single time, but at least it's a way that you can make your end closers win. After you have a passable Uma, you could decide to high roll without Daring Strike, without Mr. CB Wit. It's going to be hard, but hypothetically, the higher ceiling is technically on Daichi Ruby Power with that additional point 0.2 Excel and Kit, especially in a situation where end closers don't have very many Excels, as we said. So try to start out, build your pass for Umas with Mr. CB Wit. Try a couple runs with the Daichi Ruby Power, but probably you're going to get frustrated with it, and I don't suggest just bashing your head against a wall trying to make this card work if you have neither of these. Okay, so that's my personal opinion on the borrow. Probably primary borrow and then secondary borrow if you are looking to high roll. For deck building, 3-2 Light Hello is probably going to be the primary deck with some Stam Sparks, of course. And of course, you just go and run your utility card in the power section by subtracting one of the speed cards. Notice that Maru Speed is here just because end closers don't really have a speed card at the moment. So try to just go and fill up what speed cards that you absolutely have. Otherwise, you can go on 10% or 20% wit characters. You can go and try running one solo wit with a bunch of wit sparks instead. Or you can go and even try double power wit, which I've seen some people run, had a little bit of moderate success with, notably on Irshakur because of the 30% wit. This is a very high roll strategy because you need Find Motion or Mr. Technically, you don't need Mr. CB for this one. You need one of your whatever your solo wit card is to actually go and work with you. But if it works and you hit it, you all of a sudden have a lot of speed and a lot of power. But I do suggest still trying to hit that 1,000+ wit because you want to get to that realm of diminishing returns. You do need wit sparks for both of these decks in order to make them have a chance at all. But the primary is still going to be 3 speed, 2 wit, and a light hello, or 2 speed, 1 power, 2 wit, and light hello with some speed Stam Sparks, in my personal opinion. For characters, there's a few characters. The strongest one, of course, is going to be XMAS Oguri Cap. And yes, Festive Miracle is going to be about a... Alright, I had to just check something and I realized that the 777 trigger is way too early on this one, so you actually just are only able to run it in end closer. That is news to me. I'm sorry about that, but you have to run a Oguri Cap XMAS end closer in order to actually go and get the full speed carryover. Otherwise, it's just simply general mid-race and just like a skill that gives you a length. But for the 5.37 lengths for Festive Miracle, you need 2 recoveries prior, plus After School Stroll. Most likely this is 777S, and of course Corner Recovery, because of the 2 easiest to grab, or of course any other recovery will work before, but your trigger point is After School Stroll. It's 100% After School Stroll. It's very difficult to get these skills. You have to loop for these, but that is how you, I guess, win with XMAS Oguri Cap. It's a lot of effort for what it actually gives you to, but it is more than pretty much everybody else goes. So sorry about that in the Pace Chaser video. I made a correction in it. Might do a video on it too, just because that's pretty egregious from me, so apologies for that. Oguri Cap XMAS and Closer is very powerful because of that 5.37 links. It's just your, of course, needing to get all these recoveries and also all the other stuff. You can also go and run stuff like Nishino Flower Ultimate if you really want bonus excel. I don't find it necessary. I think you should probably just run more late race and mid race, but it is what it is. So, XMAS Oguri Cap players, just start making end closers now, because that's my bad before. Narita Taishin is probably the best end closer besides, because Nemesis is very likely to proc on that final corner. You combine this with stuff like Shadow Break and Narita Brian with that 10% speed bonus to make it so that you are able to pass them, get some speed carryover, immediately proc stuff like Lightning Surge, and go from there. It's a very powerful combo if it does actually work, and it usually will work because his overtake condition should be proccing on that final corner at some point, as long as you're not uber wide swinging. From there, Narita Taishin, incredibly powerful, has Shadow. If you are a Oshi player that has it super cheap, you might use it just in case you're in the front half of the pack, because Nemesis plus Daring Strike plus Professor Curvature is a ton of mid-race that probably most other characters don't have. So I think a lot of times you will be in that 4th position and will have a slight dead zone there. So you may want to go and grab a Nishino Flower Ultimate or just take Encroaching Shadow. It's perfectly fine. It will It's just a little expensive if you don't have hint books on it, of course. Hishi Amazon. UNB 101 now has a precondition on final corner. You should be passing somebody on that final corner, hopefully, I would say, or later. And you do get it partially eaten on the final straight. You do need a ton of Excel on this character in order to get use out of the final straight unique. Um, However, the kind of thing that makes her good is she's fine on this map is that Storm and Drung is fixed. Storm and Drung is great late race, home stretch hases in kit, and closer straights and corner in kits. You have of actual a ton of actual skills built into the kit, so you can focus on the general skills and use a more general loop. 20% power is not going to be a 20% power is going to be very helpful in the actual building process as well. Sweep Tosho, victory belongs to me, Strelitzia. The only problem with this is that you do have to stay towards the back until the final corner, and of course you do probably want to take the restraint on it just to make sure you don't rush as much, but Sweep Tosho and Closer Corner, Slipstream, and Petrifying Gaze in kit, and primarily the strength is the 10% speed and 20% power bonus. Mayano Top Gun Wedding is, of course, a very fascinating character because on this character, if you get forward in the pack, it's a Velo ultimate, which if you pass somebody in the front, you could speed carry over, which is very, very nice. And if you pass someone in the back, you can actually teleport from the back of the pack all the way to the front of the pack. It's a lot of ground to make up, but a lot of times it does work. It's a 0.8 excel when combined with stuff like Lightning Surge. So it is very good. No matter what position you is, she does come with Straightaway Spurt through Changeling. You could take that as a hedge when you do get the speed version of the unique. Not necessarily think it's absolutely required, but you do run this for the 10 speed and 10 wit bonus. Gold Chip will always be powerful. Anchors Away is basically Daring Strike plus plus. You combine this with Daring Strike. May not even need Daring Strike if you don't have CB Wit. This is one of the few characters you probably can run. Try to run the Daichi Ruby card on your high roll runs. Anchors Away goes and carries your mid race into Daichi Ruby, which gives you Lightning Surge to carry your late race. Now, the power button is very strong on Gold Chip as well because of that 20% stamina bonus and 10% power bonus. You might want to go and throw your sparks into speed and wit and see how that goes, because a lot of times the power taps that you're going to incidentally get will go and amplify themselves enough to hit your stamina requirements on this character. Summer Gold Chip is the big gamble character. You can gamble her as a late starter. The problem is that you're on your left is going to get moved. So instead, do note you have 2 golds in kit. You can just take these ones because they are golds that will be possibly 564 escapades. You can take stuff like Professor of Curvature if you wish. You can take the early race golds like See You Later. But try not to go and grab the gold versions of your Excel skills because they are very likely to be taken by the gun and 564 escapades to proc them early. You can if you want, but I think a better strategy on this character is simply to allow the 564 to be a velo skill and go and grab basically every single white acceleration skill in the game so that the white excels are normal, and you utilize the 564 on your gamble for additional velocity skills. It's basically 2 free gold skills that you normally do not have access to. The 20% power and 10% wit is very powerful as well. Measure of Bright gives you really nothing, to be honest, but Lovely Spring Breeze is some mid-race, so it should help out. It is technically less than a Daring Strike, barely, because the duration's only extended to, I think, 7.5 in this one for seconds, but it's still at least some level of mid-race, which is very, very welcome. Only 8% wit's going to be really relevant for you, to be honest. Otherwise, Admire Vega, Shooting Scar of Descaroi. The final straight uniques, again, need a ton of Excel to get value from, but you will at least probably get about 2 seconds if you actually hit your 0.4 and Stutch. She does come with Straightaway Spurt in a triple Aguma-san. It's much less relevant than the fact she has Storm and Drung and End Closer Straights and Corners in her kit. So a lot of late race on this character with the 10 speed and 20% power bonus makes her relatively easy. It's just your unique is going to be partially eaten. Inari 1 can be run as late surger very easily, and there's nothing really binding her to the end closer position after looking into it more. Now, the thing is, she is faster in the end closer position. You just lose on your left and the ease of use that late surger gives you. Now, Recruising is a duel. Duels are very, very good for you when trying to catch up to the front runners. If you hit a duel, you get a Tripulse, and Tripulse is good, of course. Usually this will be slightly late anyway, so you will get near full value from it. Tail 9 is incredible mid-race. You get Tail 9, you get Professor Curvature and Daring Strike, and you have more golds than everyone. Let's be honest. Again, you have the 20% power, 10% stamina, going to amplify that power button quite a lot, and also just give you a lot of power when you're tapping your speed button. Seeking the Pearl, you probably want to run Late Surger, to be honest, in this time. She has Big Sisterly and Umamusume, nothing really holding her to the end closer position. You're kind of making it just a little bit harder, but if you enjoy end closing and you have the cards, you could run her end closer with that end B aptitude. Impossible is, of course, you have to get close to the lead by that 200-meter mark. Otherwise, you're getting a 0.35 instead of 0.45. It's a little easier to do as a late surger currently. Narita Taishin Steampunk has her unique completely eaten because it's final corner. You do get a couple of skills to help, but honestly, base Taishin is a lot better than this one. Air Shakur's funny thing is that 30% wit bonus. Trigger B is probably going to be partially eaten. Let me see. Final corner or layer inner pack. Navigate fuse. Yep. So this is a final straight. So you do need a ton of Excel, like I said. Big thing with Air Shakur is you do have Moonlight Flash, which is the gold end straights or corners. I can't remember. I think it's corners. And ramp up. So you have the mid race, you have Fall Runner and Kit, you have 30% wit bonus. So this is the one where you go and you run solo wit and you hope you hit enough wit taps in order to get that 1,000 to 1,100 wit that you are kind of aiming for. More is better, but that's, I mean, I think you can solo wit on this and utilize that in order to hit your speed a little bit higher. Tamamo Cross, again, nothing really binding her to the late surger or to the end closer position, and I think the late surger position might be a little better for her actually, because she does have position pilfer and fast and furious there rather. White Lightning coming through is just a mid-race skill. Mid-race skill. Second half of the race will be late race this time. Sorry about that, because the final corner is at that mid-race position. This will be late race. It will be not really utilizing the Excel that much. Hopefully this is just the closing speed that you need, and you have Tail 9 in kit with Spurt, but I think Spurt is much more outweighed by the fact that you have Fast and Furious and access to On Your Left as a late surger for Tama. Festival Rudolph, technically this is the position where you can late proc Air's Whistle, Shadows of Spurt. I have consulted with a Rudolph player and they said just play it any role you want because you're not getting unique anyways, so just play the one you can build her the best, and you have Fall Frenzy, so you're faster. That's kind of the way you are going to win. You just don't have a unique, so do with that what you will. You got some speed whip bonus over the base Rudolph. King Halo Cheerleader is the last character I think I'm talking about. Only reason to run this character end closer is maybe you don't get in the front of the pack until the late race or until the 50% mark. Maybe your Daring Strike procs late. If there's a lot of late surgers, I think you still just run the base King Halo in the late surger position this time, but hypothetically you lose all the skills and you gain tiny bits of consistency with Tracer and Cheer, which is a late proc Excel, but does give a little bit because of the 0.4. Things to consider with that. Still think base King Halo as late surger is better. So those are the characters I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the checklist right there. I know it wasn't absolutely every single character. I think in general, if it can be run late surger, it makes your life a whole lot easier. And if you are planning to force them end closer, you basically pretend they're a late surger without nice nature and on your left. So I think that's very easy to understand there, in my personal opinion. Try to get your stats as the checklist. Your primary Excel is probably some level of Leap Forward or Lightning Surge, and then supplement it with some sort of positional Excel, whether through the Ryan Marzensky or Ryan My Top Gun Wedding combo with Nishino Flower, or through something like Nimble Navigator. You need something more than just the white version of Leap Forward. Now, you are very fast if you hit a ton of acceleration. Grabs your Daring Strike, your Shadow Break, your final corner mid-race is really nice, and then finally close it off with some late race, with Triumphant Pulse, with Homestretch Haste, with Masterful Gambit, stuff that the end closers are very good about doing. Your secondary and tertiary excels can be there as backups like Straightaway Spurt, or as various different gambling options available to you if you have additional skill points for you. At the end of the day, the end closers are going to thrive if you are actually able to hit your accelerations. Do focus on that. You have a natural advantage in the mid-race with Daring Strike. Leverage that with stuff like Nishino Flower, and I think you will find some success with the end closer position. This has been the end closer guide. All that's left is the front runner guide. Like I said, I will get to it as soon as possible. But all that is left is to thank our members. Thank you all for watching. Again, memberships are appreciated and support is appreciated, but it's not required. I try not to, at this point, go and gatekeep any content at the moment. Just trying to here to help out. So In the board tier, I do read out your names, particularly in the overview video, but I've been doing it in the various role guides because there is enough of you that I can manage. So thank you especially to those who have given back a little bit more. Kikuzi IRL, Immobility, Mr. Merrick, Crest of Gautier, Lucifer, Peter Van San, Oscar Van Bruce, Misha, Sage, CD Ogren, Sorcerer, Elise Bright, ETEP, Pete, Astrosarian, Eva Delta, Scrapax, It's Bella Knox, Coralicious, Brandy Boffin, Tony Lim, Dialectical, Sleepy Bat, Hobby, Trevor Overtone, Dalagante, Oguri, Cat Pizza Burger, Jeffreyism is the Goat, PH Man C, Giras, Ariantes, The Real Meisho Doto, AWAX Cubs, Tokateo Monarch, Bellio, NC, Summer's Moon, Sypha, CM, Frisk, Farizali Bear, Aoi Tori, Dev Null, Ramiro Ray, Error Hentai, Viet Kuhn, Arfenis, Just Some Major, Hungry Llama, Ghost Muffins, Bacelia, Josephone, and Dayal. Hope you all enjoyed the Uncloser Guide. I know it was shorter than the other ones, but that was for a reason. I didn't go over absolutely everything that I did in the late surgery guide. Go reference that if you have any extra questions or put them out in the comments below and I will get to them. Take care, everyone. Burb out.